Welcome to the Somewhat Frank podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, author, and investor Frank Gruber, and joined by entrepreneur, lawyer, and investor John Good Times Guidos. After each having successful startup exits, these two college friends cover a wide array of the latest trends and topics in tech, startups, investing, entertainment, and life. You'll notice they like to live life to the fullest with lots of adventure and believe in celebrating those important wins along the way. The podcast is produced with the help of Established, a strategic consultancy focused on corporate innovation, entrepreneurs, and the ecosystems that support and elevate them. Now it's time to be somewhat frank. Let's get to it.
Back to the Somewhat Frank podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, your host. I'm joined today with Johnny Good Times Guidos. Thanks for joining me.
Frank, thanks for having me as always, my friend.
How are you doing, Johnny? You had a big weekend, right?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I had my 43rd birthday, which was pretty exciting.
Awesome.
My fiance, she went ahead and I think she saw it on social media somewhere, but she got us a hibachi, chef to come over to the house and set up the hibachi stuff outside for a nice group of us, and
Awesome.
had a lot of fun. It was pretty cool. I've never seen anything like that, but it was a great time.
And you had good weather, so you were outside.
Yep, out on the boat, out on the pools and those sorts of things. So
Great.
Summer is finally here. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Well, it's definitely hit me in the face with all the pollen because you might be able to hear it right now. I feel like I got kicked in the face with pollen, and it's just like in my throat, in my nose, and I'm taking all sorts of things, and I'm hoping it's not COVID. So hopefully, I've taken about a bunch of negative tests that say it's not COVID. So can't believe we're still dealing with COVID here now 3 years later, but here we are. And I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's COVID or do you think it's allergies?
My vote is I think you have allergies that turned into a sinus infection. If you'd like my clinical
Diagnosis.
Diagnosis, exactly. But yeah, I mean, there is an uptick though, it seems to be with COVID these days. Thankfully, I've not heard of any real serious COVID stuff going on lately, but fingers crossed we don't want to get back to where we were a couple years ago.
Absolutely. Well, we'll find out. I got a couple different tests out there. We're going to get back. They'll get them back to me soon, so I'll know for sure. All right.
Okay.
Let's jump in. We've got five. We're going to do our 5 things, and we're going to keep it moving here. The first one is kind of one that's been eating it at me for a little while now. The last couple of weeks has been a little rough in the United States. And first off, I should preface this by I grew up out in the Midwest in a home where, I hunted regularly. I had guns and I did things since I was 6 years old with them and family members, and, hunted deer and rabbits, and actually worked. My first job, one real job, was actually working at a sportsman club where they literally, shot pigeons and all that, like clay pigeons. So definitely familiar with guns, grew up in that environment, and, it was used very much for, part of life to basically survival, right? We'd actually enjoy it as a sport, but really it was about the meat. Like we'd actually eat the pheasants and the deer and everything else we'd get. So anyway, starting with that, I'm really upset with the way that America's kind of gun culture has continued to kind of evolve over the last, several decades, but it's gotten really bad as of recently. And you're obviously, because we've had a number of mass shootings, just about every weekend there's a mass shooting, and a bunch of them, are with kids. And it's post-pandemic, we're out killing each other, which is so ridiculous. So I'm really upset about the way things have gone. And obviously I'm kind of pinpointing some things around assault weapons because, growing up as a hunter, we didn't use assault weapons, right? And really those are meant for not hunting game, they're meant for hunting humans. And I think that I shared an article in here about America's gun culture, which has 7 charts, and you look at it compared to other areas, and we're basically at the bottom of the barrel as far as our culture. So it's something's got to change. Something's got to change soon, because it's so hard to walk into Walmart or send your daughter or son to school, or go to a festival. And obviously we turned a blind eye to it for a while, but I don't think we can do that anymore.
You bring up some good points, Frank. Obviously, it's what's been going on has been terrible lately, and I'm just going to state the obvious on some of those things. I think that really the way things are going to change are finding that balance to make sure that there's some concessions made just with everybody's safety in mind.
Right.
So I feel terrible about what's been going on. And I, like you, grew up hunting and fishing and that sort of thing. And people want to protect themselves, right? And so, but to do so, to your point earlier, you don't necessarily need some of these assault weapons. So, hopefully the politicians and the powers that be can find that balance to make some change for the better.
Yeah, I think the big thing is I'm a gun owner, right? And no one's coming for our guns, right? It's coming for those assault weapons that are being used to butcher people, and I think that's really the thing that needs to change. And it's just too easy. Some of these things are happening day of events. Like literally people are buying these AR-15s and other assault rifles and handguns and literally taking them out and using them immediately. And so that's just not first off, that's just not right. And secondly, the point of the matter is like, do we really even need these? Like, they're not used for sport at all. So I understand some people enjoy that, and so we could come up with a way that they could still enjoy them in a certain circumstance. But like, from a sporting perspective, but obviously it's not sport when you're killing people. So obviously we want to see something happen. There's been a lot of movement the last couple of weeks with this, and hopefully people can put politics aside and actually make some change happen. All right. So moving on, that basically, we've got crazy inflation happening in the world right now, in the US right now. Gas prices are actually, they've kind of went down where I'm at, but I know certain areas, I think I saw somebody post from like California, and they're like $8 a gallon right now. But we should remember that like back in like 2008, 2009, gas prices were $4 and $5 a gallon. So this is definitely something that's gone up and down. But I do remember back in the day when it was like 98 cents or 89 cents a gallon. So from that perspective, we're kind of out of hand. But I guess my point here is that because of inflation in the housing market and everything else, people are looking at alternative ways to live. And so there was an article about a retired couple that decided to live permanently on a cruise ship for just $43 a day. So kind of an interesting way of doing it. And I believe it was an accountant. He figured out that he could do this more easily than just buying a house or whatever. And it just went further. So I don't know. Could you do that? Could you live on a cruise ship?
I've given this a lot of thought over the years, not just recently. I think I could definitely do it. I'm a fan of cruises, and given the fact, hopefully, the COVID stuff was scary on cruise ships, but notwithstanding, I could definitely do it. I mean, the some of those rates that you get on some of these cruise ships, like last minute, are pretty inexpensive, and the amount of food that you get and entertainment, etc. I'm a fan. I think I could definitely do it.
Yeah, I don't know if I could. I've done cruises and obviously been around boats all my life, and I just don't know if I can take the movement. I just like the movement all the time. But I think maybe probably get used to it. But yeah, it's just, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know. It just seems like I'd be tired after a month or so.
Yeah, I understand. I'll put it this way: there's a lot worse things that you could be doing, right? I mean, I guess everything is relative, and if you're set up pretty nicely here on land, then it's probably hard. But some people out there are probably struggling a little bit, and
right.
It's probably a decent setup. So
yeah, no, you're right. Because like think about like cruise ships have usually a lot of different great food, and you're always going to interesting places. So it's like literally like vacationing all the time is what it kind of would seem like, probably. Now we did get hit. They did get hit pretty hard with COVID, if you remember. It was pretty bad if you're on a cruise ship there at the beginning of this whole thing. So that is something else to think about as we embark into a year, whatever we are in of the COVID situation, and obviously other things could pop up too.
For sure. But if you're talking about $1,200 a month to live, and if that includes all your food, all those resources, it's a pretty good deal, right?
Oh, and that's a phenomenal deal. Like you can't even go to college for that, right? And live in a dorm, right? Or whatever. Like
for sure.
It's like, that's super cheap. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea. All right. So, all right, let's move along here. So I know we've talked about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and securities before. I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but I do think it's interesting that that we have a situation where somebody that was an insider at OpenSea, which is a marketplace for NFT sales, is actually been I believe, arrested and charged for some insider trading of NFTs. So he was, I guess, he's been alleged that he was actually buying these NFTs because he knew they were going to be promoted or whatever, and ultimately telling others to do it too. So I guess it's a security, so it's regulated by the SEC. So it's just like having stock insider trading. So it's kind of interesting to think about. These are JPEGs, by the way, most likely.
Right. Think? I mean, it's just like anything else when you collateralize or commoditize any of these things, and you can pump and dump, et cetera. You know, I've talked about this on occasion. So definitely that's what these people are doing right now. And there's not a ton of tangible value behind them other than what people and what the market's willing to pay for them, which is ripe for the opportunity to be doing some of these things that are prohibited by the SEC. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I get it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, he was kind of ahead of the curve as far as knowing what the big ones were going to be and then buying those up and, obviously making money from that. And then obviously could, like I said, dump it if he needed to after. So yeah, interesting where we're at with that. I know there's been a slump as far as selling NFTs. We're going to, can dive into that another time, but I believe they're down like 25% of sales are down 25% from like a month ago or so. So it's definitely seeing a dip. It could be, lined up with the whole, crypto currency crash, as far as numbers are low, as far as, there's a bit of a crash right now as far as what the cost of each thing is and value. So that could be tied to it. It could be inflation. There's a lot of different things. So, but yeah, it's definitely not as hot as it was, 3-4 months ago.
Sure. Wow, it's interesting. It's going to see how things continue to unfold.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's going to come back, right? Is it going to bounce back and all of a sudden it's a thing again and all those people that have been in it the whole time are doing great or not? So I'm definitely watching it closely.
Well, it seems like an ancillary market, right? I think that some of these other things like real estate, for example, or commodities, there's people are very recently having opinions. I think Elon Musk even said that we have some rough days ahead of us as a U.S. economy. So, I mean, when people can't feed their families, right, some of these JPEGs and other things become less important and they're less valuable, right?
Right. Yeah. Kind of need the roof over the head first, food on the table, and if you're paying $8 for gas, you're probably not going to be able to spend money on your JPEG collection, right? So that's kind of where that's at. All right, so while we're talking about things on the interwebs, we can go over talking about space because that'll distract us. We've got China and the U.S. are racing to make billions from mining the moon's minerals. According to a recent article in Bloomberg, there's a race for the moon, and we've covered space a little bit here and there. It's interesting because for a while there was a company focused on doing this on meteors, and now you're kind of getting to the bottom of why we're trying to get back to the moon, which is not something we were doing years ago. So kind of interesting where we're at.
So you're telling me that the plot line from Don't Look Up is actually happening?
Apparently it is. Yeah.
Isn't that the whole premise of Don't Look Up? Is they were trying to mine that meteor for specific minerals and et cetera?
Well, that's actually Naveen Jain has a company. He's an entrepreneur. He has a company that's doing something similar, like literally doing what that plot was. And I thought it was interesting that was actually the plot of the movie. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's a real thing, and they're some of the rocks that are up there are worth billions of dollars, right? Like there's tons of minerals up there that we don't have on Earth. And so the question I have really about it is it going to mess up? I mean, the moon is used to by the Earth to kind of regulate certain things. So like the tides, for example, are regulated by that. So rising waters, that go every day around a cycle. So so that's kind of one thing I was worried about is like you start taking away mass from a object that helps regulate certain things on Earth. What does that do? If we're starting to bring it all to Earth. So that was one thing I was thinking about. And then just like, what is that going to look like? Is it literally going to be like a war for these things up on the moon? Like, are we starting Star Wars? And is that what we're doing here? I don't know.
Right. I mean, there is some forward thinking with the Space Force that recently came out the past couple of years, right? I mean, who's going to be regulating all of this and determining, you know, what, say for example, China or whomever goes up there and starts doing some wild things to the moon. To your point, I mean, you could throw the world off the Earth off its axis, and we could spin off into the ether. So it's pretty scary stuff, man.
Right.
It is like a science fiction novel, right?
It's crazy, yeah. So, and then moon pirates, right? Is there literally gonna be like, we know about the Pirates of the Caribbean, or is there Pirates of the Moon, or like meteors? I don't know. Like, with the way that space travel is happening more privately now, maybe there's gonna be other groups that aren't countries going up there and checking this stuff out, and startups and other businesses doing this as well. So it'll be really interesting as this all kind of unfolds. But the bottom line is, it does distract us from the day-to-day here on Earth a little bit, I guess. But that's only momentarily as we think about some of these things. And I also should mention, we work with NASA. I saw that NASA is sending something up to space soon, the Artemis, and you can actually go on and send your name to space. So that's, I don't know what, it's a campaign, obviously, to get people to sign up, but you can put you can actually get your names sent to space. And I guess you get a little, maybe certificate or something. I'm not really sure, but it reminds me of buying a star kind of, but either way, it's kind of a fun thing, I guess, that they're doing right now to get your boarding pass. And they've had over 2,700,000 people get their boarding passes and put it on Artemis, and Artemis is going to send something up to the space station, I guess. So that's interesting. And you can go sign up over at NASA.
Yep, sounds fun. I'm not going to criticize it too much because we have some friends over there. But
no, I signed up. I'm not criticizing. I've already signed up.
Did you really?
Why not? Yeah, get your name up there.
Oh, I'd like to do it too. Then.
Yeah, why not?
Is it free?
It's free. Yeah, you just go to this website.
Oh, well, there you go. Then I'm going to do it. I was honestly going to say there's other ways you can waste your money, but
no.
If it's free, I'm signing up right now.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, so that's happening in space. Here on Earth, we've got a baby formula shortage. I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but I every so often on my Instagram, I'll be scrolling, and I'll see somebody post a story or something that, a picture from the grocery store with like the shelves just like kind of emptied and like torn apart. Like there's like one or two like baby formulas kind of sitting sideways on the shelf and everything else is cleared out. Kind of reminded me of like when I went shopping during the pandemic, right? Like that initial burst where there was nothing on the shelves. And we've seen a lot more of that with baby formula, and it's like a legit problem. And so I know the president is working on getting some more formula for the US and whatnot, but there's also now a bunch of other potential options with things like plant milk. And so I saw an article in Bloomberg, and it caught my attention because it actually is a friend of mine has a company that does this called Kiki Milk, and they're actually written up in this article, but there's also Ripple and some other plant milks that are out there as well. So thinking about it, I'm like, well, that could be another option for people. And so I thought I'd share that out. And as we look for alternatives for this formula.
Yeah, again, a lot of these things you're talking about today seem to make sense to me, right? So we're utilizing those sort of plant milk for other things in our adult lives. Just makes sense for the kids as well. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, there's been enough studies done that there's no real side effects or anything like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's an interesting article. You can check it out and look at some of the charts about how it's taken on cow milk. There's going to be a battle for supremacy around milks. All right, so one other article, I know this will be number 6 probably today. We go over, I guess, our top 5 here, but is I don't know if you saw recently, but there's going to be driverless taxis. They're approved in California for the first time, and they're going to roll out gradually. So there's this company, Cruise, which is actually like won the bid, I guess you could say, to be the first one to do this. They want to contract with San Francisco. And so, I don't know, autonomous vehicles, they've been continuing to improve and be out there now for the last several years. And we've got companies like Waymo and from Google and Argo AI and others that are doing similar work in different markets. So this will be I think it might be the first one in San Francisco if Google hasn't beat them to it already. But and I don't think they have. So more or less, it's kind of interesting. I don't know, Johnny, would you get into driverless taxi in any city?
At some point I would, I'm kind of like, let the first iteration figure out the bugs, and then maybe, after it's been tested out for a while, try it out. I mean, it sounds really neat. And I know we're moving in that direction. I'm less worried about the driverless vehicle and more worried about other people, right? Like, because some of those things you can't plan for, and somebody else running into you in one of those things. But
well, it does concern me. I mean, we've got not just driverless taxis, there's going to be driverless semis, right? And there's another whole bunch of companies working on that, and they may already be doing this in certain areas. They're testing it out. So imagine, 10 years from now, is it just going to be a bunch of autonomous vehicles, communicating with each other, hopefully, and maybe more safe than humans? I don't know. There's still obviously, like you said, some things to work out, but it does make you wonder and kind of reassess your whole, idea of, okay, should I be driving with all these basically robots out there?
Yeah, for sure.
It reminds me also, did you see the TV show? It's on Amazon, actually. It's Amazon Prime. It's called Upload.
I did a little bit. I think I lost interest like a few episodes in, but it was pretty cool. It's
a sci-fi show, but not too far off base of like some of the things that are happening, right? So one of the things is there's definitely autonomous vehicles in that show. It's supposed to be set a little bit in the future, and I'm not going to spoil it, but definitely has some issues with the driverless vehicles. So check that out if you want. It's out there on Prime. If you're a Prime user, I think it's free. So just go watch that. It's got a couple seasons. Pretty good. All right. So one more bonus thing. It's baseball season. I've been watching my Cubbies seesaw. Like, some days are good, some days are bad. But besides that, there's a new team in town. It's not really in town, but it's in Savannah. They're the Bananas. And they're not part of the MLB directly, but they're captivating fans, and they're really helping. I don't know if you've seen this on social media or anything like that, but they have some interesting antics. Reminds everyone of like the Harlem Globetrotters of like baseball, and they're really fun. So, like, for example, you might see a pitcher do like some weird like dance before they pitch, and then the entire infield do the exact same synchronous dance, and at the same time. And obviously it's entertaining, but also like could throw the pitcher or the hitters off and stuff. So it's they're doing fun things like that, different things that other teams aren't doing, just to get people's attention and make it more interesting than just watching a regular game.
I've seen some of those clips. It looks hilarious. Yeah. And with the initiative that Major League Baseball has taken recently to make things more exciting out there, I mean, I think it's a great thing. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I ever get to Savannah again, I'm going to go check them out because it looks funny. I have to check out who they're playing, but they do some fun things, and it might make a minor league game kind of like more interesting too. So maybe the MLB will start incorporating some of these things too. For sure. All right. So cover those things today. Hopefully you enjoyed this cast. Appreciate you being here. Happy birthday again, Johnny. Hopefully your celebration continues throughout the week. Thanks, Frank. Maybe throughout the year even. We could do a year-long celebration. That sounds good to me. So for everyone listening, thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll drop some of these things in the show notes, and hopefully you all have a good day out there and be good to each other.
Thanks for listening to another Somewhat Frank podcast episode. Be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to celebrate your wins, small and large, with gratitude. It will make your journey more enjoyable. We'll be back soon with another episode.